Welcome to the Tangent Gentleman, where each week Scott and I start with a topic from the previous episode, and along the way we see where the conversation takes us, and a question, idea, or disagreement will spark a tangent. We'll talk about those tangents at the end of the podcast and pick one for next week's episode. So this week, Scott, we have urban versus rural.
Yep. How are you doing this week, Brian?
Well, I've been practicing on saying rural.
Rural. Yeah, it is funny that you still, I don't know what people in North Dakota talk like, but to me, you still sound like you talk like you're from Kentucky.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah. And they do notice. Yeah. I mean, everywhere I go, where are you from? Where are you from? You're not from around here. Like, yeah. That's
a thing. I saw a show. I was listening to a radio show the other day, and they were talking about this book. I think it's called Why Do You Talk Funny, or Why We Talk Funny? And it was about regional dialects in the U.S. and how people who know what they're doing, linguists, I guess, they can ask you to pronounce just like two words. And when you pronounce those two words, that clues them in as to where you're probably from.
Yeah.
Well, and it's fascinating. I mean, I know some of it's like, like Coke versus pop versus soda.
Yeah.
And then,
here's one that's come up in my daughter's YouTube videos. It's been noticed a lot. I never thought about it. I'm just going to ask you. Pronounce these two words, COLD and CODE.
Code and code.
Yeah. So everybody, notices in these YouTube videos that I don't pronounce my L's. It's cold. Huh. It's cold outside. Yeah. You're getting owed, and they're hearing CODE and ODE. And anyway, somebody chimed in the comments one time, said she was a linguist and said that it's an Appalachian thing. A lot of people
that would make sense, right?
A lot of people in the Appalachian region do not pronounce L's in any words. And I wonder where that comes from.
I don't know. I'm trying to think, because I have a really good friend from southeastern Kentucky, and in Kentucky there is a town, and it's spelled BARBOURVILLE.
I can't even remember all those letters to know what you just spelled.
Well, it looks like it would be pronounced Barberville.
Oh, okay.
Okay, BARBOURVILLE.
Yeah.
Barberville.
Yeah.
But that's not how they say it. They say Barville.
Barville?
Barville. So they totally skip the middle syllable. And to your point, they don't say Ville. They say Ville. Barville.
Well, that's a little bit of my struggle with RURAL. Like, what do you do with that R stuck in the middle? Rural?
Yeah.
Rural?
Rural. Yeah.
Well, I guess that R is attached to the first syllable, and I guess you don't want to make it very strong. But man, you start thinking about it. It's a lot easier for me just to say rural.
Rural.
RULE.
Yeah, rural. Right. So,
all right.
Okay.
What you got, man? Urban versus rural.
So I started. Let's see. How did I go about this? For some reason, I started going into like crime. Like that was for some reason I kept getting into the rabbit hole of like, is it true that rural communities are safer than urban communities? Is crime really better or worse, in one place versus the other? And basically the answer is, maybe depends, because in general, there's less crime in rural communities. Most of the studies and most of the articles I read indicated that. But then part of it, then it got into this thing about what does it mean to be urban, and how does one define an urban community? Because it gave examples of like we sort of have this in Louisville, but not really. You have Louisville, the city, what used to be the city, and then you have Metro Louisville,
right? Yeah,
and then you kind of have what we used to call, I don't know if they call it anymore, Kentuckiana, which is Kentucky and into Indiana. And those are very different places, and they use the example of St. Louis as an example that has the city, which would be called the urban part of St. Louis, but then the environs, the suburbs, technically that's part of St. Louis urban. And again, depending upon where you are, that either dilutes the crime data or concentrates the crime data. if you include those, bigger geographical spaces. But if you live in, like if you live where used to live in Louisville,
mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think of Fairdale. I mean, I remember this vividly. My first year of teaching at Fairdale, because I grew up in the city. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I'm an urban kid.
Yeah.
And when I first started teaching at Fairdale, which Fairdale's on the southwestern part of Jefferson County, I mean, isn't it about as close to Bullitt County? It is about as close to
Bullitt County. Yeah, touches Bullitt County.
And I had kids ask me, what kind of tractor did I have?
Were they being serious?
Yes. I was like, tractor? I don't have a tractor. I have like a lawnmower,
Yeah, so there is like some small town things that go on in Fairdale. I mean, you'll still see people riding horses down the road sometimes, and things like that. So it's and the Louisville versus Metro Louisville thing. So I guess Metro Louisville, if you consider the whole Metro Louisville area, isn't it like one of the 20th largest cities or something? I mean, isn't it up there?
Oh, I don't think it's that big.
It's not? Okay.
It's a little over 1 million. I think if you go...
I think it's 1.6 million. Let me turn this heater off.
Yeah. So we had City of Louisville, and then, when was it? Mid-90s, they had merger. So it became Metro Louisville, which was all of Jefferson County.
Yeah.
But then Southern Indiana, which is right across the river, it probably adds, I don't know, what do you think? 200,000 people to the mix?
Southern Indiana? Is that part? That's not Metro Louisville, though.
It's not Metro Louisville, but it's part of what I consider the Metro Kentuckiana, the metro area.
Yeah.
So I think of that as the same urban. To me, that's the same city area, but it really gets into that distinction between where do you? Most people talk about the city. It's just funny to me because I grew up. There's no doubt about it. Where I grew up was the city. Mm-hmm. Like it was urban as urban could be.
Yeah.
Shotgun houses, really close together, densely packed in.
Yeah.
Perpendicular streets. I mean, all the earmarks of what people think of as an urban type environment. I mean, I literally could stand in either of my side alleyways and touch my neighbor's yard, touch my neighbor's house. I mean, we were that close.
All right. So it was, for this episode, why don't we, for rural, I found the definition of less than 5,000 residents and 2,000 housing units. Okay. I found that as one of the definitions. And then on the other end, why don't we compare that with large cities? Chicago, Atlanta, New York. You good with that?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So, and I know we've had the conversations before. You really enjoy large cities.
I do. Yeah. I do. But I think it's partly because the way I like to travel. Like when I go somewhere, I really enjoy visiting large cities. I don't know.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you think it's visiting and being a tourist in a large city, or do you think you would like to live in, say, Chicago?
I don't know. I'm actually about to find out that vicariously because my son's moving to Chicago.
Oh, really?
So. Yeah, he's going to graduate school in Chicago, so we're going to find out. He's going to because he's absolutely convinced he wants to live in a big city. So we're going to find out if that's true, and I guess somewhat I'll get a experience it vicariously. But I don't. I think I would. I think I'd have to kind of find my bearings, which is probably true. If I moved to Carson, I'd have to find my bearings. But I like the idea that I can just go out and get to what I feel like I need that day.
Yeah.
Like I can, if I'm in the mood for fill in the blank, Greek food, Thai food, whatever, I can go find it that day without too much trouble. I like that part of it. I like that if I need something, for my aquarium or some home improvement project I'm working on, then I can get that without, a whole lot of planning to drive or without having to drive hundreds of miles or dozens of miles to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like that. So
access to amenities is definitely a big part of being in a large city. So did you come across the rural happiness paradox any when you were looking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Not by that name, but definitely people reported being happier in rural communities. But then I found something else that was contrary to that. So what did you find out, or what's your take on that?
So I actually saw that this became a thing in a lot of studies for a long time that they called it, it was titled the rural happiness paradox. And the paradox was that people reported, higher well-being or happiness and well-being in rural areas, despite the fact of what you're saying, and in larger cities, you have access to amenities, higher access to probably better jobs, and a lot of things that you would think. And this was in developed countries. They found the opposite in undeveloped countries, I guess, because a country that doesn't really have anything, there's not going to be anything in either area. But in developed countries across the world, it was worldwide, and in several large cities, they found people to report to be happier in small towns and country living, and they attributed it to a lot of things. Or there were several things they looked at, and one that stood out to me was access to nature. And I think that's where, like, a city like Louisville, I guess, which would be a mid-sized city. I really don't know, but it seems like we have a lot of parks and a lot of access to nature in Louisville.
I agree, and that's that. When I talk to people about living in Louisville, I say that is one of the biggest positives that I don't think I appreciated until I was probably into my 20s. Like, just like I like that I can find the things I need, material things that I need, I can be in a park in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Walking, riding my bike in 2 minutes. I mean, I like that. I like, where you used to live. I mean, you go out there and you're in the forest.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in the forest, and it's just,
Yeah. We talked about that all the time. It's so, I say we've had pretty, what would be considered high stress jobs, and there was a certain tempo to the work we did. When you work in a high school, we were, I guess at that time when I was there, 11 or 1,200 students. I think they're way bigger than that now, maybe 16 to 1,800. But I would leave work and I would head home, and as soon as I hit the bottom of that hill and got started up that switchback hill into the Jefferson Memorial Forest, it was just a whole different feeling.
Yeah.
It was me and Cindy in that house, and we had our two neighbors across the street, Andy and Paula, and 8,000 acres of forest around us. And
so was it a sense of protection, do you think? Or was it just a sense of calm and peace?
It's a rhythm thing, I guess. It's kind of like, I kind of think, I don't think it's the fast paced. So, like, if I'm in a large city or I'm in a situation like working in a high school, and there's one reason I went back. I left teaching after my first couple years, and went into finances and securities, investments, and insurance. And the reason I returned back to high school is I just missed the energy of a high school. There's certain energy around there. It's a certain environment that you don't get, anywhere else. It's just an energy you get. So it's not that I don't enjoy that, but there's another piece that I feel like I got to get away from. It's very important to me that you have this external piece, navigating in the world, learning how to live in the world, and be happy in the world. But I think another part of being human is kind of this inner thread that we all share, and whatever you want to call it. I'm going to avoid words because there's so many, associations and things with those words. And I've got to be in a certain environment personally to be able to tap into that. And it's not with a bunch of external noise around me. I don't have the capacity to be able to tap into that with a lot of external distractions. I'm very. I don't know if this is a weakness or if we're all like this, but I'm very much impacted by my environment. I don't know if that's a human thing. I guess it probably is, but maybe some more than others. But you just take teaching. I found out right off the bat that I needed to avoid the teacher lounges when I started teaching. Because it seems like that's where all the teachers go, to bitch about students they don't like and talk about how bad of a job it is. And man, I would go in a teacher lounge and eat lunch my first year teaching. I'd leave there wondering if I had the worst job in the world. It just really impacted me. So I had to avoid it. I had to be intentional about that.
And I agree. And part of my job before I came back to work with you is I would go into schools and try to create positive spaces to use that time around the lunch period. So like creating opportunities that bookended that to create opportunities to have teachers, do like some positive reflecting and these things we used to call lunch and learns, where we would, bring in an idea and strategies and say, hey, you got to eat. We'll feed you for, 15 minutes, but we freed it up with your principal. You get to stay here for 45 and work on this or think about this or have these conversations. And it was amazing to me how resistant the school at large was. You would get, a faculty of 75, you'd get 15 initially, and maybe you'd get up to 25 people that would come but people wanted. And I don't know if they just didn't want to do anything during that time period that they felt we were infringing upon it, but it just seemed like there were so many people that wanted that negative space. Like they found that therapeutic or something. And I was like you. I was like, the last place I wanted to be was around a bunch of people complaining about how hard my job was, because I knew how hard my job was, but I wanted it to be better.
Yeah.
Not bitch about it, but so. I see that. It was funny because the last time, just a few weeks ago, I was in Chicago, and I pretty much had the day my son was visiting schools, and I pretty much was just on my own. And I found myself on Michigan Avenue. I really like the Art Institute of Chicago, so I go there, and that's a tranquil place. I mean, that's a place where you talked about this way back on the pod about seeing art and being immersed in art. Yeah. And my absolute favorite painting is this one by Edward Hopper. It's called Nighthawks. It's these three people in a diner. I'm sure you've seen it. It's a pretty famous painting. But I go there every time I go to that museum, and I go and I just stand in front of that painting. And like the best time is when I go there and no one is there. Yeah. And I just stand there and immerse myself in that painting and think my thoughts and just, But it's not nature in the traditional sense, but it definitely has that same cathartic vibe for me.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I think it translates directly to art. You think about visual arts, music, any of those things, poetry, all those things can take you to that place inside that whatever you want to call it. It's that mystery that a lot of us, I think most of us, know is real.
Right. Right. And so I'm sorry, go ahead.
And for me, it would be hard when, there's so much, you talked about convenience, entertainment. Yeah. I think you'd have to really be intentional about seeking out the environment you're talking about, like the art museum, in a place like that, or you would totally lose touch with your inner self. I think it'd be, I'm going to speak for myself. I could easily do that because I've got to be in a certain environment, and nature's always been a big part of that for me. I think music is another one, but when we were in Jefferson, when we lived in Jefferson Memorial Forest, I took hikes 3 days a week, and it's just as soon as you step out there, and you're walking in these thick woods, after 20 minutes, you just feel different, and your thoughts are different, and what you're thinking about is different, and you just, it would be, I think for me, it would be way harder to be grounded and connected if I lived in a large city.
See, I don't have that experience, because when I'm in, like I literally had this experience when I was in Chicago last time. I had like 2 hours, I had 2 hours to just keep, nothing, nowhere to be, nothing to do. And I just went walking in up Michigan Avenue, along the major thoroughfares, along the major streets. And there was just a pulse to the city and the people. To me, that it's not the same as the Art Institute or being at Jefferson Forest, but it is a connection. It's a sense of being in a place that I take energy from. I mean, I don't know that it's not as peaceful. I'm not going to make that argument.
Yeah.
But it definitely validates my sort of sense of humanity for me. It really has a sense, a feel.
So maybe it's my perspective then. Do you think it's an external validation? So here's what I see when I'm in Chicago. Where do you eat? Where do you want to be seen? Where do you live? It's like kind of an external competition and external expectations. It doesn't feel like a natural rhythm to a life we're supposed to live.
See, for me, it's the opposite.
Really?
Because there's 6-7 million people there. Nobody cares about me. Yeah. The anonymity of just being wherever you want and doing whatever you want within reason. That to me is what I like the anonymity of it. Whereas that's one of the things I want to get to you on the other side of it. Like, do you feel like can you just disappear? Can you go out and disappear in Carson or in small town America? Or do people know? I feel like the guy.
I feel like right now that I'm in one of the last towns that's left like this. For people that don't know anything about some of the towns in North Dakota, we are an old. We are an old. We're an old railroad town. That's been here since I think 1898. And it started with about 225 residents. It grew to, I think, 600 at one time, but it's always maintained about 225. And I think we're at about 225 right now. So we're talking very small town living.
And so the only industry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the only industry to speak of was just railroad and railroad related supports?
Yeah, I think at one time, but then I think when when Carson grew to its biggest, and this is just a history I've picked up, there was a large lumber yard in town and a large, I think, some type of steel manufacturing plant. So there were a lot of jobs in those two areas, and then there was apparently a big windstorm that pretty much destroyed those buildings, if I got this right. And, rather than do the repairs and everything, it's just, they just kind of let those go. And those buildings are still here in town, but they're somewhat dilapidated. But no, people, if you drive out of town down Main Street, people are going to see your car, know your car, and know you've gone out of town. But there is something that just feels good about the rhythm. So one of the hardest things for me in coming up here was, I kind of lived a driven life for a while. I kind of, that's just what I did, and it felt good. But I think part of the result of that life I lived, and mainly my career, is that all my interactions with people were somewhat transactional. I've got some reason to see this person. Let's see this person. Let's talk about that. What needs to be done. Let's go on. I always tell people all the time, and our friend Chris, who comes on at the end, the assistant principal job is one of the most transactional jobs that exist in the world, I bet. Your whole day is 30 seconds to 2-minute interactions with people all day long, one after another, all with some purpose. You got this to get done. You have a transaction, get done. So interactions with people became very transactional. And then I came here, and you have these conversations where like there's no regard for time. It's like it's just you just talk, and they call it visiting, which that's not a new term, but you visit with people. You see somebody at the corner and you visit with them.
So I wonder if see, I have that same experience now. So you think that's more, could that be just an attribute of where we are, our station, retirement?
Yeah,
sort of,
I think so. I do more also in retirement, but everybody does that here. If somebody's at work, I'm thinking of a gentleman right now who works every day. If you have a conversation with this gentleman, he is never going to end the conversation. He'll talk as long as you want to talk.
Yeah.
And
here's an to this point. Here's an interesting piece of data that I came across. And it was about, it was in this crime, looking at crime and people reporting crime and people being victims of crimes. And there was this swath. I want to say it was in like the age 15 to 19, or maybe 15 to 20, somewhere in there. I read several studies, so I'm not remembering exactly which one, but somewhere in that 15 to, we'll say, 25 range. The number of incidents reported and the consequence of those incidences was pretty much the same per capita across rural and urban settings. In terms of crime, particular types of crime, not like petty crimes, murder. Like burglaries, robberies, minor assaults. But what they found is, they dug a little deeper on it. A lot of it had to do with, you could also parallel it to economic consequences of communities. Mm-hmm. But then where that parallel fell apart was rural communities that had a sense of network, not necessarily social structures, but a sense of network. That number decreased. Whereas urban communities, whether they reported a sense of network or not, it stayed the same as it did in the rural communities. And they theorized it was because these structures, these social structures, are built into cities and urban settings that may not be built into rural communities, because rural communities, in the best version, take care of that stuff on their own. They establish the network. They will talk to you just to talk to you. They will check in with you to make sure, hey, how you doing? You see a person, on the street or whatever. Hey, how you doing today, Brad? Things going okay for you today? And you feel validated and you get a sense of connection. And that in communities where that people have that sense, crime is lowered. But in rural communities where there's not that sense of that social structure, which they equated to economic consequences, then the crime is higher. Or it's comparable to what it would be in urban communities, which I thought was really interesting. And I think a lot of it gets to the point you're making, that the real positive attribute of really any community, but particularly rural communities, is people. It's not transactional. They just they're just willing to talk to you.
Yeah.
And, they make that human connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking, another thing is too, so when you drive through our town and the highway out front into the next big city, which I don't know what the population is, but it's not big, and it's that hour away, you wave at everybody.
Yeah.
When you're in the car.
Yeah.
And when you walk through our town here, you speak to everybody. You at least say hello. And I like to do that anyway myself in certain settings, but I don't, if I'm in Louisville and I'm walking through Walmart, I don't say hello to everybody. But if I'm walking through the high school, I'm going to give everybody a nod or something,
Right.
I'm going to acknowledge everybody I see. But, it's so, I wanted to ask you this, though, when I was thinking about it. Do you think, because I wonder about the differences in us as people, me and you, do you think urban versus rural is a reflection of self, like the city, the city, the city would meet kind of who you are? Because I think let me ask you this. I don't know this about you. I only know our circle, but I feel like you probably have a pretty large circle of people you consider friends. I always keep a pretty tight circle of who I would consider friends. Is that true or false?
That's false.
It is. Okay. So you keep a small circle of friends.
People that I consider friends.
Okay.
This is, me, I'm terribly analytical. What I've kind of come to realize in the past 15, 20 years is, and this sounds terrible to say, but I kind of felt compelled to quantify friendship.
What level we're on?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, is this because what was happening is I was getting very, I don't know, whatever the word, angry, upset, disappointed. People I thought, hey, this person was my friend. And then something would happen and I'd be like, wow, that really sucked. And then a good friend of mine said, but did it really suck? Because honestly, was it really that bad? And I said, well, I expected da-da-da. And they're like, well, so what they did really wasn't that bad, but it was less than what you expected. So it wasn't really the action. It was your expectation of their action. And it probably doesn't mean they're any less of a friend to you. It's just, they're not your, they don't, because this sounds very arrogant to say, but I think people that think of me as their friend, I'm a pretty loyal friend. I definitely agree. I mean, if you need a thing, if you need something and I can help you get it or help you deal with it, I'm going to do everything I can to help you do that. And I have come to realize that that's not true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean they're bad people. That just means they're not the level of friend that I thought they were. And so to your question about the circle, what I've kind of done in the past 15 years or so is just processed who are my, I joke with, I have a friend who's in this category. Who are my friends that if I came to you and say, look, I'm not going to explain this to you, but can I get $10,000?
Yeah.
I'll pay you back, but I don't want to get into it, but I need $10,000. Can you get me $10,000 by Friday? Who are my friends? And, that's just one example, obviously, silly example. But that's kind of where I'm at because, there are people that I'm that person for them.
Yeah.
If they came to me and said, I need X, I'm going to do everything I can in the next 72 hours to help them get X. And I'm not going to ask why. I'm not going to say, are you sure this is a good idea or what,
Yeah.
But so to that end, I think that circle is pretty small for me.
Okay.
So, but I will say, my friend from Southeast Kentucky.
Put a number on it.
Definitely less than 20, maybe less than 10.
Okay. Because I was going to say less than 20 for myself. And then kind of like you said, there's probably and also a less than 10 circle, but I'd say there's definitely less than 20. It might be more than 10 to people who I feel it pretty important to keep connected with, but it's small. Yeah, it's definitely less than 20. I'd be the same way. When I asked you, I was thinking myself, it's less than 20, but it'd be hard to put a number on.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my friend from southeastern Kentucky, who's full of lots of good, whatever colloquial Southern colloquialisms of sorts. He always said, I mean, we've been friends since college. He said, there's two kinds of people in this world. There's lumpers and there's splitters. You're a lumper. You're the more the merrier. You want as many. And that's true. That part is true. That's where, if I'm looking at the number's, N plus 5 for me, as far as how many people do I want to be engaged with and how many people do I want to share in the human experience with.
Okay.
That's a big number. But that's not, I don't consider those people. And this is just a growth thing for me personally. I used to consider all those people as true friends.
Yeah.
And I come to realize they're not. That doesn't mean they're bad people.
So what's the difference between, how do you distinguish between somebody you want to bring into your lump and somebody you consider your friend? Well,
because the lump's it's pretty easy to be involved in that.
Okay.
You just
want to increase enjoyment for everybody or make people feel part of something.
Yeah. I want to, whatever the thing is, I want people to be there and share in it and enjoy it from their perspective to so that it enriches them. I mean, we joked about this. I can't remember if this was on pod or just in conversation. I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. So several years ago, Bruce Springsteen did this on Broadway thing, which I was fortunate enough to go see, but then it ended up being on Netflix. And I was like, oh, this would be cool. I'll have people over the house and we'll watch it. So we had like this viewing party. And lots of people came to this viewing party. But I didn't expect that they were all like true Bruce Springsteen fans going to love it. But I thought it was, I love to cook. So I had the basement. Yeah, exactly. No talking in the basement. That thing, that event it's also what I love to do. I cooked a bunch of food. I made food for people. We hung out. People chatted. People ate food. We had drinks. It was just a great thing.
Yeah.
Was it the full-on absorption of seeing Bruce Springsteen and taking all that in for all of what I think it is? No, but it doesn't have to be. It kind of cycles back to what you said about bourbon and the richness of the folklore and the community. We shouldn't have to say, hey, you can be part of this community if you will accept it on these terms. Mm-hmm. It should be, you can be part of this community.
Yeah.
And hopefully it will enrich you in some way. Yeah. And I think that's where I've had to come to with my friends. Like I can be friends with people and we are friends, but it's not the level of a level 5 friendship, like, hey, I know if I need, whatever. I don't really need $10,000, but
no, I know what you're saying. Yeah. It kind of says something about, the two things there, you got people that care about one another and willing to, willing to be generous to take care of somebody else. And then the other side of that, I think, is extending that to strangers when you can,
Yeah. Yeah.
And that generosity and inclusion, kind of, everybody has worth.
So do you see that, back to our theme, is that more common in rural than urban settings, or is it not? It's just the nature of people.
I think in this particular small town, everybody that's here belongs, and we're going to try to make you feel like you belong.
So if I come up and hang out in Carson for 2 weeks, it's never going to be, there's that guy from the city.
They're going to wonder who you are.
Yeah.
And they're going to see your reasons for being here. But they're not going to make you feel welcomed. They're going to want to know, okay, that's Scott. He's staying over at Brad's house over on such and such street. This color house with this color door. and we'll see them in this car.
Yeah.
And I think they were at the bar the other day playing the slot machines.
Yeah, that's probably possible.
Interesting fact, 225 people in 2 bars. We got 2 bars in town.
Yeah.
And there's only 2 ATMs in town, and I'll let you guess where they are.
Oh, yeah. In the bars, I'm sure.
In the bars. Not even in the bank. And we have a bank in town.
Yeah. See, I had an experience when I was a teenager in Scottsburg, Indiana. I had a friend that I grew up with here, and he moved to Scottsburg, and I went up to visit one weekend, and we were teenagers. We didn't always make the best decisions, and something happened, and it wasn't bad, but it was silly, stupid things that teenagers do. And the stories that were told, this was like on a Friday night after a football game, and Saturday we're at the I don't remember the community pinball. I don't remember where, some community place, right?
Yeah.
And the stories that were told about this guy from the city came up here and he did this and he did that. And I'm like, that is so not true. I mean, and it was just funny to me because I'm like, I am not that guy.
He moved the mayor.
Yeah. But it was really like, he's from the city. And he came, and I don't think Scottsburg's that small. I have no idea. I'm going to guess it's in the thousands. I'm sure it's in the thousands.
You daggone city folk.
Yep.
So let me share this with you.
Okay.
You were talking about the thing your buddy said, or your friend. I can't remember what it was now. So I was at the gym here in town the other day, and I was talking to this guy. He's 75 years old, just had both his knees replaced, and he's doing all his rehab and trying to get back to where he feels like he should be. And he was telling me about, he went to the doctor and, asked the doctor how he was doing. He asked the doctor, hey, when am I going to get 100% mobility back in my knee? And he said, the doctor told me, well, you won't, you're shooting for 80. But anyway, after all this, he said, it just reminds me, I got to remind myself all the time. He said, such and such told me, when I was young, he was a 65-year-old guy, and he told me, if you can do at 65 what you did at 25, all that means is you didn't do shit at 25. I love that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. So I had this thought. Back to our theme. I want to get your opinion on. Okay. So this weekend I had this experience. We went to the Louisville Orchestra. They played Rhapsody in Blue by Gershwin, which was just... my family, I'm not, but my family, my wife and my sons are both pretty good musicians. Mm-hmm. My son's music major. I mean, he's a very good musician. And it was just, I've heard this song 100 times and, I really like it. But just hearing that performance, at one point I just closed my eyes and just literally just tried to immerse myself in just the sound and the whole, all that. And so when we got on the way home, I said, Brad and I were this week's rural versus urban. I said, could this happen in small town, wherever, North Dakota, Kentucky? And my son said, no. He said, it's highly unlikely because you got to assemble 85 to 100 accomplished musicians, really good musicians.
Elite. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're at the top of the game.
Right. And he said, I just don't think there are that many people of that caliber. Because I said, well, Brad said there's 200 and something. He said, yeah, you mean to tell me 30% of the population of Carson, North Dakota are elite musicians? No.
Yeah.
And so that brings me to the point of that experience for me it's not the same, but it's comparable to standing in front of that painting in the Art Institute, but it's also comparable to being alone walking through Jefferson Forest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so is that really what it comes down to? That
I would say it's comparable to having a conversation on the corner with somebody you really enjoy talking to.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that says to me, it's on you, the individual, not on the environment that you're in. Because I can get it in Louisville. I can get it at Jefferson Forest. You can get it in Carson. you can get it in somewhere else.
I agree with exactly what you're saying. I think it does depend on you, and you've got me thinking differently about how I might try to experience Chicago or Atlanta. And I'm going to Atlanta in June, as a matter of fact, next time I'm there. But I do believe, I do believe you can be intentional about setting up the environment to be open to whatever this is we're talking about, this inner thread. Yeah. I think it can easily be, I think you can put yourself in a position where you're drowning it out, or a position where you're doing everything you can to be graced with this, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. And it is, I mean, it's just this, I mean, it's a simple fact of numbers that if there are 1 million people in your city, or there's 200 people in your city, the likelihood that you're going to interact with somebody who is, up to no good is higher.
Yeah.
And so to say that, oh, you can go to Atlanta or Chicago or Memphis or New York or wherever and be as comfortable and casual as you can in Carson, that's delusional. Because there may be two people, we'll say if it's 1%, there may be two people in Carson that are just as ill-intended as there are in Atlanta. But in Atlanta, 1% of Atlanta is a lot more people. So the likelihood of you interacting with one of those people is a lot higher. And that's the part for me that I have to remind myself of, that's where I have to, when I go to New York, I just have to be comfortable, but attentive.
Yeah.
And
I agree. That's what I'm going to do next when I'm in Atlanta. I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell you about it. But the orchestra example, and we'll go ahead and have Chris join us here in a minute, and we'll talk about this. But I do think that what you were feeling that night might not be the same every night. I do think it's something shared. Like, I do think, whatever's happening when they're doing that, performing that night, they're feeling the same thing you're feeling, and they're tapping into that same inner thread, and that's going out into the crowd, and people can get a hold of that. And the next night, it might not be the same, might not be to the same level.
Right.
But, you can have a night where everybody's tapped in. Well,
I mean, as I said, I'm a huge Springsteen fan, and I've seen him in concert a bunch, and he talks about that tonight we collectively are making something that will never happen again.
Yeah.
And it's up to all of us, you as a fan and as a participant, and me and us as the people on stage, to create that thing and to fully participate in that.
Yeah.
And I think that gets at your point. Like, it, I don't know. I guess I feel like I'm coming to the place of, I don't know that rural or urban, which I don't know that one's better than the other.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And, Scott, like, I was listening to you talk about the orchestra, and I had that same feeling. Close your eyes and everything. It's just Tiffany and myself in the boat. A little before sunset, most people have gone in, and we're heading back actually from about Brad's dock. We went on a little ride to the dam, and right there, man, just a feeling of like, wow. It's like very seldom do I feel like we're living in the moment, and that beauty and the water reflecting off the water and my wake of the boat in the back. I went to that moment that you're talking about.
Oh yeah,
at the orchestra right there, on Nolan Lake. So I totally get that. Yeah. And before we go on, I do have a question for you guys. I'm gonna need $10,000, and I really don't want to talk about it.
You're not a number 5. I'd love to help you out. You're good. I'm good for about 8,500.
Maybe if I can keep you around for about 3 more bourbons or one more bet parlay that comes in, we can talk about it.
Hey, speaking of bourbon, Scott, I'm having that 1920 Old Forester. I think you were the first one to introduce me to that. I think you might have bought me a bottle of it.
I may have. Yeah.
Or you brought it over or something.
Are you still claiming that as your first bourbon of the night, as you usually do?
Yep. Yeah, that's it. But it's running low.
Yeah, we don't know where it started.
Well, he had to have one because he had to say rural. He didn't know how many times rural.
That's one of my. Hey, how about this as Kentucky boys? When we go to conferences, maybe up in the Northeast or something, anywhere, I do the best I can to try to not talk like a Kentucky guy, and it never works.
No, everybody knows.
Yeah.
So, I just have given up.
I just learned just talk like you talk. What you have to do is you have to slow it down a little bit.
Slow it down.
Okay, so let me try something on you guys. I'm going to exaggerate the speed I say this with, and I want to see if you can understand me. All right, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's go.
Do you have a car?
Yeah,
you have a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a car? So, I've learned that we Kentuckians are linguistically lazy. Instead of do you have, we just say like one word.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when I first moved up here, no waitress in the restaurant they were trying to figure out what in the hell word is he saying when he says because I'd go in and I'd say, do you have a bourbon? Do you have a bourbon?
Like done.
Yeah.
Done. Does not. Done.
So, Brad, let me ask you.
Book. I got to find this book.
This kind of goes right along. When did you feel like, hey, I'm a Carsonite or whatever you guys call yourselves? I feel like I'm in with Carson, North Dakota.
Oh.
And how did you know? What was it? You know what? I think I'm in. I think they like us, Cindy.
They made us feel pretty welcomed right off the start. But when we first came in and went into, I can't remember if we went into one of the bars for a drink and food or what. They had food in there, and they separated us and questioned us, and then just to see where we're from, where we came from. But I will tell you that we found out though later. So there's a city close to here called Leith. And I think there's a documentary. I think the name of it's Leith. As a matter of fact, Leith. But they had this white supremacist move in. And his goal was to take over the city council and make it a white supremacist town. And they ran his ass out. It was a documentary on it. So I think they're very suspicious about people coming in and just want to make sure intentions are good. Okay. But they made us feel welcome once they realized we're just average people.
Even when you were the backup postmaster general for the town of Carson, they didn't see a takeover coming.
So he's trying to infiltrate the government. All right, Brad, we got a grade.
Yeah, so I got an idea.
How we grade this one?
I think I have an idea. What if we graded? You had 2 grades tonight. You grade urban living, and you grade rural living.
Do we do that each? Because I don't know that I can grade rural living. Brad can grade both, but I can't grade both.
Well, it's your choice, Scott. We're not going to force you to do anything.
Thank you. That's very considerate.
All right,
but I like because Brad has been. I mean, I hope to one day visit Carson for some strange reason. But that is you're talking rural. If you're doing a spectrum, it's on one end of it.
Oh right? Yeah. It's it's way out there on the bell curve.
The whole time the week that you guys were talking, I have both. I feel like I have both. I'm literally looking at downtown Louisville from my bedroom, 14 miles away. Yet I'm in the middle of the largest municipal forest in the nation. So I'm kind of living both worlds. But now you move me to Carson, that's rural.
Yeah. I think the thing for me, and I had this experience. I was my friend in Southeast Kentucky. I mean, he lives in Corbin, which is 6,000 people. So I mean, it's not Carson small. And we were working on the project. I went down there to help him with the home improvement project. And it was pretty involved. And it just blew my mind that in the morning, we would have to think through all of the day because we were going to make one trip to Lowe's because it was miles away. And if we got halfway into the project and we probably should have got a whatever. Yeah, we're not getting it. We didn't get it today. And to me, that's a part for me that I guess you just would have to figure out how to get used to that. But I don't know how. It would be tough for me to get used to that. I mean,
it would be tough. Tiffany and I always talk about moving to the lake down in Nolin, and that's probably just a little too rural for us. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Carson's definitely too rural, but maybe not. Who knows? But I don't know if I could move out of a hybrid that I'm in. Yeah. That would be tough.
But here's the thing. Here's the difference between Carson and your lake area, because I know your lake area real well. Is you have everything you need here in Carson. You got everything you need. It's you got a grocery store, you got a bank, you got a bar, you got a hardware store, you got a post office, that I can walk to in 5 minutes. They're all down there on Main Street. So,
but if
that's
you're doing if you find yourself doing some major project, some home improvement project, can you go to the hardware store and buy 8 sheets of drywall?
No.
Yeah.
So the hardware store, and he'll tell you, he wants to have everything you need, but hopefully you don't need 2 of them. And he'll tell you that. And it's true. He'll have everything you need. Hopefully you don't need 2 of them.
Because he goes to Lowe's at the end of every Wednesday and resupplies.
I think it's a do it your best. All right, my grade is going to be. Go ahead, Chris.
All right.
Hey, I was just going to ask you, when you're in the bar, and you're playing the slots and the music's playing, and then a stranger walks in, does like the music come to a screeching halt, and every head turned toward the door, like in the movies? He's like, argh!
Everybody knows if it's a stranger, but no, It's not like that. It's a great place. And I'm going to give this whole setup of rural all the way from 200 towns to 5,000 to mid-level Louisville's to Chicago's and Atlanta's and New York's. I'm going to give it a B+. Because everybody's got somewhere that'll fit them. How's that?
We knew a B+ was coming, but I really don't understand your rubric. But we're just going to go with it on the answer.
I think I would have to say, and I'm not saying I can't learn it. I mean, I want to say I can. I think I'm a good learner. I think for me, a rural existence would be a C-.
Yeah,
it would be tough. It would be tough for me.
Well, you're coming to visit sometime, right?
Well, yeah, but it's also like going to New York. Like we started at the beginning of this conversation. I love to visit New York. I love to visit Chicago. I don't know that I would love to live there.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm at with I just don't know. I think the older I get, I think the more I would appreciate and be comfortable in rural America or rural towns. Because I think there is in the best version, there is a sense of human connection.
Yeah, definitely.
That you don't, that you come to appreciate. 60-year-old me appreciates that a lot more than 30-year-old me did.
Yeah.
And
so I think that's important,
After listening to you guys, kind of thinking how we grade this and what do I think? Honestly, I think in the end, I'm going to give both of them an A. Spending some time with, in both the larger metropolitan areas, bigger than Louisville. Because Louisville, by the way, is the 43rd ranked metropolitan area with 1.4 million.
There we go. Okay.
But it's it can be a great life. Every time I've been to a large city, as we talked about Chicago a lot tonight, guys, I love it. It's great. But I'm also ready to go back to that rural area. And just as I am at any rural, I went to school in Richmond, Kentucky, 30 years ago, and it was a lot smaller. There are perks to both. And it's great. The more you can balance and get a little more in your life, I love it. It's both of them are great places to visit and great places to actually live. Now, I do question whether I could live in an urban environment growing up with green all around me all the time. But both of them are A's. If I had to differentiate, I'll give urban an A-.
Let me say this before we get on to our tangents. One thing that I have noticed moving from Louisville to North Dakota is it's made me appreciate both locations more. Like when I go back to Louisville, I appreciate Kentucky more. I'll tell you right now, I haven't done a lot of world traveling, so I can't say the world, but there's no place more beautiful than Kentucky. There's really not, if you really consider, what's going on there. But there's also another level of beauty out west that's different, with the big open skies and the rolling landscape. And when I'm in Kentucky, I appreciate it more now. And when I'm in North Dakota, I appreciate it both. So having the contrast between the two has helped me appreciate both more.
Yeah. I mean, we had the experience, I guess, 10, 11 years ago now, we drove across the country, and that's the one thing that I just felt so fortunate just to have that experience of like coming from, here, having been to Chicago and New York, and along the way, we ended up in some big cities and we ended up in some really small places. And it really is just that sense of just amazement. It's an amazing country. It really is an amazing country with lots of just fascinating geography and landscapes. And I mean, it's just, I just remember trying to explain to my dad going to the Grand Canyon, what that was like. And my dad never went, and he was like, "Oh, it's just a big old hole." Like, yeah, but it's the most impressive hole I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, people are the same everywhere you go.
Yeah.
We're all the same, living his life.
And usually you find out.
The great American poet, Bruce Springsteen. I've lived in poor neighborhoods and rich neighborhoods. There's nice guys and assholes on every block.
There's a truth. That's a truth.
And when you do travel, you usually find most people are good people.
Oh, yeah.
By far the majority. Yeah. And that's really not what you see or hear if you stray into the digital world. So it's good to get out and do what you guys did. I remember when you guys did that trip. Yeah. And getting the update on it the following summer. That was an awesome trip. But yeah. All right, you ready? Hey, a lot of tangents tonight, guys. A lot of tangents. Cool. Okay. Well, that's good. I would say you were related to rural and urban on most of them, but yeah, we got some. And one of them is kind of related to the whole urban and rural is regionalism. We've kind of talked about that a lot, but we've talked about dialect again. And, Brad does not pronounce L's. We know where that's common.
You don't either.
Appellation. And I don't, not even when I try. But but there's so much regionalism that goes on from what people drink and eat. So that came up again. So that's kind of that's number 4. All right, that's my 4th really, but I lead off with that. Number 2 is nature. You guys spend a lot of time talking about nature, and I liked it. It really made me think about how that affect, where are your childhood memories? Are they inside or are they outside? Mine are outside, right? But is that just the case, or are some people just inside more? They didn't really get out to nature. That's just not where they want to go. They want AC, but I don't know. The spirituality that comes with that, the education that comes from being outside, just nature. That's a broad topic, but it'd be an interesting subject to have. Next up, and this is a good one, it's friendships and how they've historically had impacts on history, wars, and but just also boils down to just your friendships. And I talked about you guys talked about having like a top 20 like close friends, right? This will give you like a week to really narrow it down and see how do you feel about these friends, and what is a friendship, and are there levels of friendship? There has to be, right? And then those guys.
Sorry, I couldn't make the podcast, but you weren't in the top
10. No $10,000 for you. Dozens of people are going to see me get turned down for $10,000. But like friendship, I think. But the one that really hammered the theme that hammered. Throughout with this one, it was kind of related with friendship. It kind of was a subcategory of friendship is happiness. You guys talked a lot about happiness, and stay with me here. So how is happiness achieved? Is the happiness a choice? Are people more happy today than they were in the past? Does chasing happiness make you miserable? Does money have anything to do with happiness? Work. can you work somewhere 40 hours a week and not at least not hate your job and be happy? How important is work? Phones, how they attribute to one way or the other, where you go. And that's just technology in general. I thought that was interesting. And like hard things. Do hard things make you happy? Like things you persevere through, helping people, work, whatever it may be. What is happiness? Like I always go back and I remember Troy Aikman talking in an interview, and he had just won the Super Bowl and he's getting interviewed, and he's kind of this is after his career, and he says, I remember winning the first Super Bowl, and like that right after that moment, it was awesome. And that night, we went out and celebrated. The next morning I woke up and went, well, now what? I mean, we won the Super Bowl. So what now? What's the next thing that I need to do to be happy? Like it lasted a night is basically what he said. But what is happiness? Like that is deep, and it ties into friendship. So you can kind of tie those in together. But man, and you always got your own wild cards. If you want to do a flashback tangent like revenge or civility, we have those. But those are the four that came up tonight. You guys spent a lot of time talking about happiness and how you like dealt with work. And that kind of subdivided off into friendships and nature. So we kind of got those subdivisions. But man, it'd be interesting to explore happiness. If I was voting, that's what I would be, because it can go so many ways, many levels.
I think we go with that. If Chris feels he likes that one. What do you think, Scott?
I don't know. I guess I'm okay with it.
All right, what do you like, Scott?
I like regionalism. I like is regionalism beneficial or not beneficial, more good than bad? I don't know.
Dialects.
But just regionalism in general.
Part. Yeah.
A sense like we indicated, we talk about when we travel in the Northeast, we try not to talk the way we talk because we don't want people to think we're dumb hillbillies. Is there any evidence that people who talk the way we talk are any smarter or dumber than people that talk, like they're from the Harvard Yard or whatever, So
Chris and I went to an education conference in the Northeast, and we sat down at this table and having dinner with these two ladies, and they asked us how we liked the conference, and we said, not really like going on at this conference. We could leave one that's a whole lot better. And it was the two ladies who set it up.
Yeah.
It was terrible. We didn't quite say that, but it was like we not only sitting with the two ladies, there were 10 people at the round table, and we were two of the 10. Yeah. The rest, that was the whole committee.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, and man, they treated us like gold.
It wasn't a very good conference. It wasn't a very good conference.
Institute. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm good with happiness. Yeah.
I like regional dialects too. I got to say, it's one I circled.
Well, and that's kind of one we've come back to. So I bet we get to it eventually. And I wish I would have had a little time to kind of come up with some subcategories on happiness, because I think it would be interesting. There's a lot of different layers of happiness that you could debate back and forth.
Like, I would like to talk about that though, because I do, I have a general belief that we've got a responsibility to be as happy as we can for everybody around us.
Yeah. I guess when I think about regionalism, I'm not just thinking dialect. I'm also
not dialect.
Just general. I mean, dialect's part of our regionalism, but so are culture, traditions and sort of community pride and a sense of attachment and a sense of belonging and, a sense of, I guess like where we fit in with because I think where we fit in with our physical surroundings, because I think that answer is very different in North Dakota than it is in Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, it'd be very interesting to talk about the way people outside of Kentucky think about people in Kentucky, the way people outside of North Dakota think about people in North Dakota.
Right. Yeah, or just whatever slice you want to put on it. Because, I mean, we all lived in Louisville, which I can tell you a lot of people in Kentucky don't think very well of the people in Louisville.
And they've never been to Louisville.
Yeah. So there's sort of subsets of the regionalism. I don't know. That's one for me that I like, but I'm not opposed to happiness. So
I also like nature.
I knew you'd like nature, but that kind of makes you happy.
That's true.
It can come up.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, I could do nature. There's actually there's a story I wanted to tell, but it would fit better with nature. So I can save that and we can talk about it next week. Actually, I can't, now that I think about it, I like that because this story could be a seed for some real analysis of what is nature.
Okay.
And
your story?
The story I'm thinking right now that I think about it.
Man, that makes me want to do nature.
Goodness.
Yeah. And it's a weird story. But let's do nature. Let's do nature. I like that. Let's do nature.
All right. Nature it is.
Nature and art.
We are after 8 minutes of discussion, regionalism and happiness, we do 12 seconds on nature, and we literally pulled a tangent out of a tangent.
Yeah, that's why we have the show. I mean,
this better be one hell of a nature story, Scott.
I do want to mention something, though.
It is weird as all get out.
Hey, you guys need to know this. So our views went up 25-fold last week. So I want to thank everybody. Hopefully they're back listening again this week.
Well,
and
you know what?
They were, but they're not in an Iron 16 in. I don't think so.
I wondered maybe we are having Brad's demographic, women above 45 who miss their dads love watching Brad on another podcast, and I think they're just trying to follow him.
Wow.
You know,
okay,
he's out of overall mode, and he's about to go into shorts. So maybe we pick those up. I don't know.
All right, man.
Wow.
We want to remind everybody again to subscribe on your favorite platform and throw out a comment and a rating if you don't mind. It helps out.
Sure.
And we'll see you guys next week.
All right. We'll see you guys.